somebody asked in a retreat that I was at, how come there's so much pain in Zazen? How come Dogen and these ancient people never addressed the pain? And this teacher, I thought, I can't remember who said this, it was an American guy though, said, well, it's probably because life in general was so painful, all the time, 800 years ago, that the pain people experienced in Zazen, which they probably did just like we do, was like, you don't even talk. Why even talk about that? If you had to, if your only way of transportation was walking somewhere or going on a horse, and there was no such thing as insect spray or aspirin or, plumbing, just the pain you experience by sitting on a cushion for a while is just like, oh, come on. Why even talk about that? So that's probably why they didn't talk about it, and not because it was perfectly comfortable for them. They were just so used to discomfort. Okay,
Can I ask a question with when you were talking about intuition?
Yeah.
Instead of like the difference between that and thinking, and I was particularly interested with that it's different as well from perception.
Yeah.
And that I was sort of wondering then, is it that maybe intuition, unlike the other two, doesn't imply distance in some way? Because like, that was triggered by you saying perception. Because like if I'm thinking about, and I guess maybe we'll talk about delays, and gaps between things. And then in my own experience, when I have sort of an intuitive knowledge, it's this kind of, it's almost like a drop. Like if you're listening to a song or something and then it drops.
Yeah.
It's this kind of almost physical kind of thing, but it doesn't feel, even though I'm actually using a spatial metaphor there, it doesn't feel like there's a distance. Maybe to the other ones. But I guess we're just sort of asking about.
Yeah, it's an interesting way to put it. I hadn't thought of it in those terms, but I think you're onto something there. It is this kind of, it doesn't imply a distance. You kind of, it's immediate knowing. There's a phrase I came across that was translated as the mind that knows at a glance. And I just, this has been months ago that I actually came across this in an English translation of Dogen, and I was like, okay, what is that in Chinese characters? And I kind of looked at it and I thought, oh well, that's a good translation, the mind that knows at a glance. But that's kind of one of their ways of describing intuition. You just get it immediately, and then the action that you need to take is clear, and there's no question about it. But it's difficult. I think we all have difficulty because we've got culture and upbringing and all these other things that tell you how to act, and so you end up often confused in a moment. But I think intuition sort of, Nishijima Roshi used to like to talk about it in terms of sports, because he, in his, when he was young, he was fairly athletic, apparently. I didn't meet him until he was in his 70s, so he wasn't really being athletic by then. But apparently when he was young, he was quite athletic, so he liked to talk in terms of sports and give that as an example of when people act intuitively. The best players in any sport are the ones who just immediately see what needs to be done, and they can do it. And it's a matter of physical training and also a matter of mental training too, of just to be able to see what needs to be done. My own experience with that not being very athletic was in music, and sometimes playing music it becomes very apparent what everybody needs to do, and this is this kind of thing. Frank Zappa used to like to talk about this because he was fascinated by it too, because his music had a lot of improvisation, and he noticed that when the band was really together, there were moments that you just couldn't explain. in rational terms how everybody knew to do this thing all at once, but they would just suddenly do it, and everybody would be together. And I've had rare experiences of that myself, and it's interesting. And so that would be another example of intuition. So it doesn't, you're just sort of, this is, and so I think we all experience that in different ways in our lives.
Well, you're saying that the intuition would come with study or training.
Often that is part of it, and I think maybe that's what Zen training is about. When it seems like you're not doing anything. It just seems like you're just sitting there, but it's actually kind of an intuition training that you're going through. But it doesn't always come from training. I mean, I think the ability to recognize it consistently is something that most of us have to find a way to learn. We have to find a kind of discipline in order to figure it out. But I think it's an innate ability. I don't think I think the reason it has to be learned is because we spend so much of our lives undoing it, So we've all spent a lot of our lives unlearning it, and we're probably born with it. It seems like infants and small children are very intuitive. Although they also, there's a kind of a funny thing that Buddhists will do when talking about that sort of intuition, because they'll say things like, well, infants and small children do it, but they also have limits, and an adult who acts like a child would be unacceptable, So you have to find a way to be intuitive and also be an adult at the same time, which is a different sort of behavior is demanded.
I suppose it's an unlearning, isn't it?
Yeah.
As an adult growing, unlearning.
It is a bit of unlearning, yeah. It is a sense of, you don't want to, you have to pay attention to the things that culture demands and that society demands and things. You don't want to throw all that away. But you also have to realize that there's something that goes beyond all of that and transcends all of that. I think that's another thing that Zazen is really good for. This sort of shikantaza practice we're doing is good for, is you just, things start to come up. I know that a lot of stuff has come up about my own personality, during, while sitting on the cushion, that I'm like, and a lot of, that's a place where some people will get freaked out, because they'll notice something that they don't like about themselves that they hadn't noticed before, and they suddenly are sitting there and going, oh my God, you have these thoughts. But then what's wonderful about it is you get, if you work with it long enough, you get to the point where any thought can come across your mind, even the most horrible one, and you're just going, oh, okay, whatever. It doesn't matter, It doesn't matter anymore, because you just go, oh my God, there's all kinds of crap in there, in my mind. And I'm not so concerned that it really means anything, it's how I act upon that really makes a difference. It doesn't matter if these unsavory thoughts come up. You just don't act on them. Okay, then you're okay. You can have as many unsavory thoughts as you want. You just completely. Well, I mean, it's probably not good to go too far in that direction. But it doesn't matter that much. It doesn't mean you're a bad person or something. People get convinced through experiences during meditation that I was just reading about a really tragic story about somebody who killed herself after a meditation retreat because she discovered basically so many unsavory things about her personality during this like one of those 10-day retreats that they do sometimes, and she just couldn't stand it. And I thought, oh, that's really terrible, because if you have the right kind of guidance, you might learn that that's all got that, and it doesn't mean you're a terrible person. She probably, my guess is she was probably a perfectly fine person, just noticed these hidden aspects and didn't know how to deal with them. But just the way to deal with them that's why we're talking about letting go all the time. You just let go of it, whatever it is, just let go of it. Just go. Is it time for lunch? I don't know.
Just to say about the difficult thought, the negative thought about, and that did lead me into depression.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can imagine, and I believed it. That's why I love the practice, because I don't believe it anymore.
Things that came up during
I
Zazen?
think I was horrible.
Yeah, I did too.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, I was the most horrible person, and people could read it on my forehead. You are a horrible person. I mean, what's that about?
Yeah. And it wasn't true.
It wasn't true.
Yeah.
But I did believe it.
And I believed it too. I spent time, and that's why I'm glad I had a teacher to consult with, because I would just tell him this, and he'd be like,
and that's all right.
just whatever,
Right.
It's just he'd just say that's just the content of your mind. It doesn't really matter.
I loved I think it was a YouTube one. It was about the digestive juices and the brain juices.
Yeah.
I really liked that.
That was something I think Uchiyama Roshi came up with. He said thoughts are just the juices secreted by your brain, and it's the same as the juices secreted by your stomach. It's just doing this thing. But it doesn't. Yeah, you don't have to be terribly concerned about it.
But it's such a good teaching that for the best, and thoughts and not believe it. Sorry, I'm going on.
No, it's good.
It's really important to me.
I just don't want us to miss lunch because I'm
No,
getting
I
hungry.
don't.
That's all. That's all I'm thinking about is lunch. So, shall we read the after lecture thing? May our attention be extend to every being and place with the true merit over this way. Beings are numberless, thou hast saved them. Delusions are inexhaustible, thou hast ended them. Dark gates are boundless, I vow to enter them. Buddha's way is unsurpassable, I vow to become it.